Hi, everyone. I want to thank you all so much for coming. Before we get started, we will have some brief remarks by the Vice Chancellor and Dean of IUPUC, Dr. Marwan Wafa.
Thank you. I did not expect that. Something fell off? Okay, maybe that's why you were clapping for me. At least you know who I am, all right? Well, good evening and welcome. One of the most important rights of American citizens is the franchise, the right to vote. Originally, under the Constitution, only white male citizens over the age of 21 were eligible to vote. This injustice has been corrected and voting rights have been extended several times over the course of our history. Today, citizens over the age of 18 cannot be denied the right to vote, regardless of race, religion, sex, disability, or sexual orientation. The path to full voting rights for all American citizens was long and often challenging. The franchise was first extended to African Americans under the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution, passed during the Reconstruction period after the Civil War. These guaranteed that all male citizens, regardless of their race, would receive equal treatment under the law and not be deprived of their rights without due process. The 15th Amendment is specifically dedicated to protecting the right of all citizens to vote regardless of their race. For practical purposes, this was not the end of the voting rights struggle for African Americans. Because of widespread discrimination in some states, including the use of poll taxes, grandfather clauses, and literacy tests, African Americans were not assured full voting rights until President Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act in 1965. Women were denied the right to vote until 1920, when the 19th Amendment was passed. Prior to that, women had only been able to vote in select states. As citizens, your votes represent your voices. It's your opportunity to be heard, to hold elected officials accountable for their decisions, and to have a say in important issues that affect your community, our community. On Election Day, every vote matters. IUPUC is pleased to sponsor this evening's event. I would like to thank incumbent Mayor Kristen Brown and Challenger City Councilman Jim Lienhoop for their willingness to join us this evening to address issues that will hopefully make us better informed citizens about their views. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to learning from you. Now I turn it over to Dr. Sandra Miles, our Student Affairs Director at IUPUC, who will take it over from here. Thank you.
All right. I will be serving as your moderator for this debate, and I'm going to go over the rules for the debate and the structure, and hopefully we will all have a grand old time today. Before we get started, I do also want to thank the faculty and staff and students of IUPUC who helped to make this event successful. I also want to thank the Republic for their sponsorship, and to Indiana University Information Technology Services and all media outlets who are streaming this event live. I'm going to go over the debate format and rules at this time. First, we will have 3 panelists who are IUPUC students sitting over here, and they will be the ones to present the main questions to the candidates. The questions will be presented to a particular candidate in rotating order, and we had a coin toss earlier for who would go first. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question, and the other candidate will then have 2 minutes to either answer the same question or offer a rebuttal. The debate will last for approximately 90 minutes. The agenda will be as follows. We'll have introductions from each candidate and the moderator, which has already happened, and the panelists. We'll have opening statements. Each candidate will have 5 minutes for opening statements. We'll have general questions for approximately 55 minutes. And then we will have a flash round, which will occur at the end of the debate. At the very end, we'll have closing statements from each candidate, and each candidate will have 5 minutes for closing statements. A panel of IUPUC faculty and staff prepared a variety of questions which will be asked by the student panelists. Questions will be asked in the following topic areas: economic development, education, general questions, health, safety, and crime, local issues, and welcoming community. Community members also submitted questions, some of which will be included in the main round of debate. The final list of questions was selected by the moderator and have remained confidential until you hear them tonight. Media will also be presented with the final list of questions at the conclusion of the debate for their reference. The majority of the questions from the community will be incorporated in the debate in the flash round, where each candidate will be asked to answer only yes or no to each question. Because this is challenging, the candidate also has the opportunity to pass and not answer the question at all. The flash round questions will be asked by the moderator. Once the Q&A segment begins, audience members are asked to hold all applause and inappropriate or otherwise awkward outbursts. Lastly, it is important to note that we will not have questions from the audience this evening. Also, immediately following the debate, our candidates will be heading over to the prearranged media room to take questions from the media. That room will be closed to the general public. If members of the public want to talk to the candidates after the debate, you are asked to allow them to go to the media room first and then talk to them once they exit the media room. Now that all the rules are out of the way, I'll now introduce the talented group of students who have graciously agreed to serve as panelists this evening. A group of students who assured me about 30 minutes ago that they would not embarrass me or IUPUC or themselves. First, we have Stephen Kane. Stephen is a native of Columbus, Indiana. He's majoring in business with a concentration in management and marketing. His anticipated graduation date is spring 2016, and he is proud to serve as the president of the debate club at IUPUC. Next, we have Jacqueline Van Osdal. Jacqueline is originally from North Vernon, Indiana. She's a senior majoring in communication studies with minors in sociology and women's studies. She currently serves as the president of the communications club at IUPUC and graduates in 38 days. Finally, we have Michaela Willman. Michaela is originally from Seymour, Indiana. She is the senior majoring in business with concentrations in finance and management and minoring in communication studies. Her anticipated graduation date is fall of 2015, and she is proud to serve as the student body president at IUPUC. Okay, I will now offer brief introductions of our candidates in alphabetical order. Following these introductions, the candidates will be given the opportunity to offer opening statements, and then we will begin the debate. First, we have Mayor Kristen Brown. Mayor Brown, the Honorable Kristen Brown, was elected the 36th mayor of the city of Columbus in 2011. She is a 6th-generation resident of Bartholomew County on her mother's side of the family and a 4th-generation resident of Columbus on her father's side. Mayor Brown graduated from Columbus North High School in 1982, from Brown University with a BA magna cum laude in 1986, and from Harvard University with an MBA in 1993. Mayor Brown previously was a successful corporate executive holding numerous positions of increasing responsibility in the fields of investment management and computer software. Next, we have challenger, Mr. Jen Lienhoop. Columbus native Jen Lienhoop has served on the City Council since 2008. A Columbus High School graduate, he earned his bachelor's degree in accounting from Indiana University in 1975. He and wife Pam have 2 grown children, John and Libby. They share their home of over 20 years with their lab, Oakley. A CPA, Jim is the director and former chairman of Blue & Company. He is active in our community, having served as a board member and/or officer on many not-for-profit boards. If elected mayor, Jim's priorities include aggressively soliciting new employers, controlling spending, and improving communication and collaboration. At this time, we will move into opening statements. At the conclusion of opening statements, our panel will immediately begin with the first question. So, Mayor Brown.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you all for being here, and thanks to all of you in the overflow room. We have a tremendous crowd here tonight. It's great to see. Thank you to the staff and the students at IUPUC for organizing this event and graciously hosting it. And I'm really delighted that you guys finally let me in. So I had no fewer than 3 ushers tell me I needed to go into the overflow room before I came in. So thank you for letting me be down here. Just over 3 years ago, voters in Columbus, my hometown, gave me the greatest honor of my lifetime, and that was by electing me to be the mayor of Columbus. And I was elected in an overwhelming majority and with a mandate for change. I promised to make our city government more open and transparent, to better serve your priorities and to protect your tax dollars. And I proudly stand here tonight saying I've kept my promises. I've made the tough calls to get our fiscal house in order, and that's because I understand that I work for you, the taxpayer, who writes the checks to the City of Columbus and not the special interests who cash the checks. I've ensured accountability, and we've delivered results the last 3 years. I've brought new transparency and integrity to City Hall, most importantly by dissolving Columbus Downtown Inc., private corporation of the city, and stopping spending your money in secret. I led the development of a community-wide vision and plan called Advance Columbus, and it serves as a comprehensive roadmap for us as a community to continually advance our quality of life for all of Columbus and leaves no one behind. And I want to spend a little bit more time just highlighting a fraction of the progress we've made at the city advancing Columbus in the last 3 years. Our police officers have never been more productive community policing with neighbors and cracking down on the dealers of dangerous drugs in our community. And their efforts are paying off. Property crime is down 23%, and violent crime is cut nearly in half. We've improved our ambulance service and at the same time eliminated its nearly $1 million a year tax subsidy. We restored stability to our most challenged neighborhoods. We've made them significantly safer and prouder through regular meetings with neighbors, concentrated community policing and code enforcement, neighborhood cleanup projects, and blight elimination efforts. We're redeveloping long neglected and forgotten areas of our community. We're in the process of making the first major infrastructure improvement in East Columbus since it was annexed by the city 50 years ago. And we have a great plan to breathe new life into State Street, and we're on track to start making important infrastructure improvements there next year. We just recently broke ground on the old Golden Castings Foundry site, a decade-old source of blight in the center of our city. We formed a public-private partnership for its redevelopment into much-needed, high-quality, affordable housing for low-income families in our community. We've encouraged record job growth. We are at all-time record highs for the number of jobs in our community and the number of people employed in our community. There are 4,600 more people working in our community than there was 3 years ago. And that's thanks to the expansion of our existing businesses and new businesses coming to town. We've made record-breaking investments in repairing our streets, dramatically reversing years of underinvestment and our most critical infrastructure. We've made record-breaking investments in repairing and improving our parks, reversing years of neglect in these cherished facilities, in particular Hamilton and Donner Centers and the neighborhood parks in our low-income areas. There are many other signs of progress we've made in the last 3 years. We have a 100% adoption rate of healthy dogs at Animal Care Services. Next month, we're starting a 5th transit route to the west side. And finally, we've begun offering curbside recycling for no fees. And we've done all this, and we still increased our cash reserves by $16 million. That's a 70% increase in savings in the bank. And the best part is, we've done it all without the trash fees, no new taxes, and no new debt.
Thank you.
Well, thank you too. Thanks for coming this evening. I appreciate your attendance and your attention. Thanks, Dr. Waffa, Dr. Miles, for hosting us. I appreciate it very much. You know, I don't know what the questions are going to be. All I know is what you've heard here. But when we go through those this evening, I want you to keep a few things in the back of your mind. All of you know I'm an accountant, or many of you do, but there are 3 numbers that I want you to remember: 17 million, 0, and 100%. 17 million is the amount of incremental tax revenue that our city has received during Kristen Brown's time as mayor, the 3 years plus what we expect for the rest of this year, compared to the last 4 years of the Armstrong administration. So if you take a look at income taxes and property taxes that have flowed through the general fund, we've had $17 million more in this period than we had in Fred Armstrong's last period. 0 is the contribution that our mayor's made to generating that additional revenue. The additional revenue that we've got, the $17 million, comes from investing in Columbus. Foreign employers, Cummins, and others who have come here to establish a business. And the point that I would want to get across to you is that the 30 foreign employers came from 40 years of hard work by mayors who went around the world looking for employers to come here. Those employers didn't find us, we found them. One of the things that I enjoy is trying to tell the Columbus story. Last fall, I had an opportunity to go to China and Japan and tell that story, and I found that I enjoyed it. It's a great story to tell. You know, who wouldn't want to talk about their hometown, particularly when it's one of the nicest hometowns in the country? 100%. One of the things that I've tried to talk about as I've been sort of working on the campaign trail the last few months is how we set the tone here at the City of Columbus and how we treat one another. I believe the tone starts at the top, and I think we can see that sort of come through in one area, and that is with the turnover that we've had among our department heads. We are almost to 100% turnover among department heads. So 17 million. The incremental revenue that we've had in the general fund alone. We've got other funds, but they have also increased in tax revenue. But focus with me for a second just on the general fund, 17 million extra dollars. 0, the number of employers that have been recruited to Columbus in Mayor Brown's tenure, and then 100%, the turnover rate among our department heads. Sometimes turnover, or the cost of turnover, is hard to see. Sometimes it bubbles up. A few weeks ago, I think we read in the paper where there was a house on 9th Street that got torn down and sent out to the landfill. The city did not talk to the property owner. We didn't follow our own procedures. I believe turnover had something to do with that. So as mayor, those are 3 things, or several things, that I intend to work on. Economic development isn't just a high-level go recruit businesses to Columbus. It's also how we treat the businesses that are here. A few months ago, Kroger came to us requesting for a tax abatement. They offered, after the abatement, $2.6 million in additional taxes, 100 to 110 new jobs, union scale with fringe benefits, and they offered to redevelop a blighted property, the old Saps Dolly Madison factory there at National Road and Central. Mayor Brown said no. That's not the kind of, we don't want to support that kind of abatement. We don't want to support that kind of development with an abatement. Follow me again on the numbers. The abatement was $600,000 The collected tax will be 2.6. These are 10-year numbers. So we come out ahead. We get $2.6 million in additional revenue over 10 years. We get 110 new jobs with fringe benefits for the employees, and we get the redevelopment of a blighted area. I think those are wins. The City Council went ahead and approved the abatement. I think they made the right decision. But when we get to the end of the evening, when we get to the end of the evening, I'll ask you to remember those numbers, 17 million, 0, and 1. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you both for being here tonight. The first set of questions is going to be in the category of education. Mr. Lienhoop, you won the coin toss earlier this evening and deferred the first question to Mayor Brown. So, Mayor Brown, higher levels of educational attainment are associated with improved outcomes, including higher income, lower crime, better services, and more progress. What do you plan to do to improve educational attainment levels in this region?
Okay, thank you. Well, let me first start off by saying that the City of Columbus, we don't have direct responsibility for education. That's the school corporation and the higher education institutions, but we do our part. Obviously, priority number one for our community is increasing the number of skilled and job-ready employees we have out there. That is the number one bottleneck to our economic growth right now, is we have a shortage of workers. We're already a net importer of 11,000 workers here. So that means on a net basis, 11,000 people are coming from outside of the county to fill jobs here. And I hear it all the time. I talk to it from the small businesses, a restaurant owner who can't be open for dinner because he can't staff his restaurant, to the plants who literally are struggling for employees and skilled employees. So workforce development is job number one. We do whatever we can at the City of Columbus. The student housing project right behind us was a public-private partnership we did at the City of Columbus to ensure that we had student housing here, which Dr. Waffa described as a game changer for his recruiting efforts. And then I also have had preliminary discussions and hopes of using some of our TIF dollars, which comes exclusively from our businesses, to take that money back and invest it into workforce development, training, and certification programs
30 seconds.
For those skills that our employers need most.
Yes. Higher levels of educational attainment are associated with improved outcomes, including higher income, lower crime, better services, and more progress. What do you plan to do to improve educational attainment levels in this region?
Okay. The primary thing that we're going to do is work with others. We've got great educational institutions in this town, Bartholomew Consolidated School Corp., what you see here, IUPUC, Ivy Tech. There's also a fledgling a branch of IU, or Indiana University, that's downtown. By partnering with those folks, one of the things that we'll do is simply encourage. I don't know about the rest of you, but I know for myself, when I was a kid, we didn't have a whole lot. But one of the things that happened when I came home was my mom and dad said, well, that's pretty good, but don't forget, you got to go to college. And I think that it's that ethic, that reminder, that encouragement to pursue education that can come from any source. One of the issues, or one of the attributes that a mayor has, is the mayor gets to stand in front of people and talk to them. We're standing here right now. And what I would want to do would be to find those kids who are considering dropping out of school and just find a way to encourage them to stay in school. I think it goes a little further than that in terms of trying to provide lifelong learning opportunities for people of all age. I mean, there's no time when you're too old to go back to school and enhance your skills or pick up a new one. I think in terms of trying to provide training programs, that's a great idea. It's a little bit tough for us to find that in the budget, but by working with the school corporation and the higher education opportunities we have here, I'm sure there's some grants and other funding opportunities that we can pursue. So I look
30
forward
seconds.
to, thank you, look forward to, to working with the leaders that we've already got to enhance the education program that we already have. Thank you.
Mr. Lienhoop, how can you work to involve traditional and non-traditional age students in the city as well as government politics. Oh, what's wrong? Okay. Mr. Lienhoop. Really?
Yes.
Well, isn't this exciting? Mr. Lienhoop, how can you work with to involve traditional as well as non-traditional age students in city and government politics?
Well, the main way that we get people involved in politics is we simply invite them to sit on boards and commissions. Now, if you're talking about students who are enrolled in the baccalaureate program here, they might be a little bit young, they might be a little bit busy. But I would think that we could find room for them either on a board or as an adjunct member of a board. I think, too, that we've had from time to time in the past an internship program where we invite students to come down to City Hall and either job shadow or just to, work as a gopher. I mean, just to go gather some data, help prepare reports, and explain to either the council members or commissioners or board members, whatever it happens to be, the information they have. So the primary thing, though, and I've thought about it a little bit while I've talked, is we would work with the leadership out here to identify students who want to do this. And we would try to create opportunities for them that would be attractive, that they'd be interested in. We'd invite them to come down and help us out. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question?
Of course. I can even use the mic this time. Mayor Brown, how can you work with traditional and non-traditional age students in order to get people more involved in city and government politics?
Well, we do a variety of things today. So we host Scouts in Government Day every year. We do constant tours of the Brownies and various age scout groups at City Hall. I'm out in the schools constantly talking with kids, working with them on various projects, whether it's art projects or writing biographies of local celebrities. If anyone is willing to work for free, we have internship opportunities. I've had a couple of interns. We often engage the city with students here and at Ivy Tech in various projects, whether they design something for us. We make our efforts part of their school projects. There's a number of examples of those. And then we strive wherever possible to involve our youth and students of high school and post-high school in advisory committees and those kinds of things that we put together.
Mayor Brown, in 2014, many Columbus voters rejected a property tax increase that would have provided pre-K education for local families who are in need of financial support. What is your position on this issue?
My position is I think that pre-K is incredibly valuable, and it's something that should be available to everyone in the community. I think that before we go to a tax increase, I'd like to see and be convinced that we're doing everything possible to find efficiencies and free up those dollars. Because what I've done at the City of Columbus, for example, is when something's become a priority, we've found the money for it. So, I heard that the community didn't like the mandatory trash fees, so we were able to immediately trim some fat when I first came in, and we found the room, we got rid of them, and now we're finding, again, through lots of efficiencies, we're finding the funding available to take care of our existing assets, our critical infrastructure like our streets and storm sewers, and our parks. So since that's not within my funding domain, I can't speak to that, but that's what I would want to hear before I supported a tax increase, is that we've done everything possible to find the funding otherwise.
I think I remember the question. Yeah. Might as well be frank. I had the sign in my yard. I wore the T-shirt. I supported the pre-K initiative. I believe that educational attainment is the one single most important thing that a person can do to enhance their economic success. And I believe further that we have kids who need that help. They need to be readier. I could have gone to school further. They need to be readier for school when they get there. Because if they aren't, their opportunities at the end are reduced. I believe that. And so I did support that and would have gone forward with it. As an alternative, what I would like to see us do is to encourage the pre-K schools that are privately funded. There's a lot of them out there that are faith-based. I think that those would be a good second choice. And I think that if we don't pursue the pre-K again, we'll probably end up with some kind of remedial type activities that will be costly as well. So again, I favored the pre-K and would do so again. Thank you.
We'll now be changing gears of the questions to economic development.
Mr. Lienhoop, currently, Columbus is disproportionately reliant on Cummins Engine Company for our continued economic opportunity. In short, a lot of eggs in one basket. Now, how would you improve the economic portfolio of the city?
There are several things to comment with respect to that, and I think I touched on a few of them in my opening statement. One is that Cummins has about 5,500 employees in our community. We have 30 foreign-owned companies that also have 5,500 employees. So we sort of got two Cumminses. And then we've got what's the other part with the non-Cummins, non-foreign-owned. One of the things I think we need to do is diversify, not just with respect to Cummins, but with respect to automotive manufacturing. The 30 foreign employers that I mentioned primarily supply automotive manufacturers, Tier 1, Tier 2 type suppliers. One of the ways we get to this is we partner with the Economic Development Board. There's a privately funded group, or mostly private, here in town, that not too recently commissioned a competitive realities report. It came back and took a look at our community and said, you've got great strengths in manufacturing, but maybe you need to move into a different kind of manufacturing. And they listed several different kinds. One amongst them was pharmaceuticals, manufacturing related to pharmaceuticals. And the idea would be, to try to talk to the folks at Lilly and see what we might be able to accommodate for them down here. A third place that I think we need to go is in assets that we already have but which aren't fully developed. We're sitting in one of them, higher education. We have the opportunity to be the higher education leader for this region. And I think we need to do what we can to promote that. Second place would be healthcare. We've got the best hospital in the region. And so what can we do to foster growth there? So the idea really is to look out, to partner with others and find other opportunities, which they will help lead us to. Thank you.
Mayor Brown, currently, Columbus is disproportionately reliant on Cummins Engine Company for continued economic opportunity. How would you improve the economic portfolio of Columbus?
Well, I think in terms of the number of employees, Cummins is by far our largest employer. But if you look, again, in the last 3 years, we've added 4,600 jobs. Can you not hear me? It's on, yeah. Is that better? Okay, I'll try and speak up. We've added 4,600 jobs, so there's a lot of job growth coming from other than Cummins Engine Company currently. And in terms of continuing to expand our existing employer base beyond Cummins and add new companies into our community, companies are going to expand and companies are going to relocate to areas where there are workers that meet their needs. So number one, over and over again, workforce development and getting a skilled and trained workforce for our employers. And I think that the community is doing a great job of that. We are doing all we can to support our existing businesses in terms of making sure the infrastructure is maintained. We're redeveloping State Street, for instance. We are looking at currently working on a private-public partnership for shovel-ready industrial land in Wellsboro. And in the planning department, we continue to figure out how we can grow in the most cost-effective way.
30 seconds.
So that we can ensure that there's places for commercial development as well as residential development.
Mayor Brown. Bartholomew County, as well as surrounding counties, including Jackson, Brown, Decatur, Shelby, and Johnson counties, serve as a regional marketplace where residents of these counties work and live together. With thousands of people crossing county lines each day, how do you plan to include these neighboring counties in your strategic plans for further economic development in Columbus?
Well, we need to look at economic development regionally. We need to work at our workforce development efforts regionally. We're very dependent on, as I said earlier, we're a net importer of 11,000 employees for our work to satisfy the demands of our employers. So again, continuing to build out our infrastructure, provide developable land, and I've got a very good working relationship with the mayors in the surrounding communities.
Make sure that's on. To work with surrounding counties, the first thing we've got to do is talk to them. We've got to get to know them, and we've got to go with them. Last fall, I went to Japan and China on an economic development trip, and I spent time with the mayors of Seymour and the mayor of North Vernon. And you get to know those guys, and you get to realize that they've got some of the same issues we do. We've got ways that we can help them, and vice versa. But you got to get to know them. You got to work with them, and go with them on these kind of trade missions. Because one of the things you can do when you're talking to a Toyota or an NK or an NTN is explain to them that it's just not Columbus, it's a region. We've got workers from all over that can come to your factory. I think on a state level we can encourage better roadways. We can encourage better transportation so that we can transport people and goods around what you might consider to be our region. The state legislature just this past year implemented some economic development monies, or made available some economic development monies that are specifically targeted to regions that partner together. And it wouldn't even have to be Bartholomew and Jackson County. It could be Columbus and the county of Bartholomew. But the point is that to get the kind of investment that you want, by participating with these neighboring communities, we'll stand a better chance of being awarded the money, and we'll have a better chance of success. But the primary thing that you've got to do is talk to them, go with them, and get to know them. I was glad to be able to do that last fall in Japan. Thank you.
These next set of questions is in the category of welcoming community. Please note that all questions in this topic area were submitted by residents of Columbus, Indiana.
Once again, this question is from the community. Mr. Lienhoop, please describe your views related to how we attract, attain, and assist young international professionals to make them feel more excited about Columbus.
Several things come to mind. Engage Columbus, our Welcoming Communities Initiative, the opportunity that Cummins has to take their employees through their HR department and show them what we have in our community. But the one I want to talk about first is Engage Columbus. It's a project sponsored by the Heritage Fund. It's right now it's housed in an old garage down on 6th Street. They got a sign so you can find them. But the whole idea is to be able to bring people in and explain to them where the community is, where what they want is, and how they make choices. Where they would go around to interact with the people that we've got here. I think that we can, with our festivals, Ethnic Festival, for example, Ethnic Expo, is a great example of how we demonstrate to people that their culture is important to us. So, something like that we would want to not only have, but promote in any of the literature that we've got, whether it's on our website or whether it's written, any of the ways that we talk to people about ourselves. I think it's also important for us to understand that, that they understand that in Columbus we take a very serious approach with respect to human rights. That we've got the oldest Human Rights Commission in this state. We take it very seriously. We work at trying to make sure that everybody gets afforded the same or the equal protection under the law. So again, what I would talk about would be engage Columbus, welcoming communities. I'd let them know about the Human Rights Commission and the other opportunities that we've got in this community that we've got to enjoy different cultures. Thank you.
Please describe your views related to how we can attract, retain, and assist young international professionals to make them feel more excited about Columbus.
Yeah, I think the continued investment in our downtown, our cultural programs, and our parks and rec facilities. So all of the amenities that we have in the community on those spectrums are really important, I think. I mean, I hear over and over again that Columbus is interesting because many of them are the young international folks that I know. They live downtown. They like to be able to walk to a restaurant, be able to see a movie or a comedy show at Yes Cinema. So again, continuing to make sure we have a rich urban feel about us with diverse cultural programs, and I hear repeatedly from young people, both here from the U.S. and internationally, that they really love our park system, in particular our people trails. And so I have a strong commitment to continue to invest in those things.
Mayor Brown. Several Indiana mayors have spoken out against Bill 101, Religious Freedom Restoration Act, including Mayor Ballard of Indianapolis. Given the overwhelming uproar over this bill, both in the state and nationally, and the clear message being sent by Indiana business, including Columbus's Cummins, what is your position on RFRA, and are you willing to speak out against the governor on this issue and take a stand for Columbus and human rights for all people?
That's a great question right now, and I have to start off by saying, one, this has been a state issue to date, so I am not as well versed in it as I am in local issues, our issues here locally, that I'm responsible for. There's been wide interpretations, therefore there must be a lot of misinterpretation of the RFA. So one, I'm not informed as well as I should be to comment on this fully. Two, I haven't taken any public opinion on it like I do on everything we do here locally. So I want to qualify what I say with that. It's certainly been viewed as bad for business, and anything that's bad for business, we've got to take a strong second look at. I am not a proponent of discrimination of any kind. We have a strong Human Rights Commission and department here at the City of Columbus, and it's a core strength of ours. Personally, how I pursue my job, I don't judge, I don't treat anyone any differently, whether or not they adhere to behavior that is within my own personal purview as right or wrong. I treat everyone with the same degree of respect, and personally, it's not
30
against
seconds.
my values to serve everyone equally.
Okay. Something told me that we might get this question. And because it's an important issue, and because I don't want to misspeak, I wrote this down, and I'll read it to you. So if I don't look up, you'll know why. 50 years ago, Columbus created the state's first Human Rights Commission. To borrow a phrase, it was, maybe I better stand up. Michael worked better. 50 years ago, Columbus created the state's first Human Rights Commission. To borrow a phrase, it was dedicated to the proposition that all are created equal. Since then, Columbus has worked to be a welcoming, diverse community. We don't just say it, we work at it. Now we have a law on the books that says to many in the country that in Indiana, we will tolerate discrimination and that we won't welcome diversity. I met with Senator Walker last week and we discussed this issue. He assured me that the bill didn't say this. Nonetheless, many think it does. We simply can't have discrimination in practice or perception, and we should treat all with civility and dignity. Our state legislators, Senator Walker and Representative Smith, and Governor Pence have done a lot of good for Indiana and for Columbus. They have indicated they will revisit this issue, and I'm glad to hear that. I urge them to act quickly and make it clear that in Indiana, religious freedom, non-discrimination, and tolerance can coexist. Thank you.
The next set of questions is in the category of health, safety, and crime.
Mr. Lienhoop, according to a story written by the Wall Street Journal in 2014, Columbus, Indiana was named one of 10 cities where violent crime is soaring. In your opinion, what are the causes for this increase? What is the city doing to tackle crime? And what would you propose doing differently during your mayoral term?
Well, I think the reason for the big increase that they reported was a change in the record-keeping method. I don't think we had an increase in crime anywhere close to what was shown. But what I would try to do, I wouldn't know that I would do a whole lot differently. What we would try to expand into is enhanced neighborhood. We would talk about making sure that the police have all the assets and all the training. I guess I should back up a half a step and say that the primary thing we would do would be to sit down with the police chief and the board of captains, and we would come up with a plan that they would implement. I'm not a policeman, not an academy graduate. We would work with them and depend on them to do their jobs without any micromanagement or anybody looking over their shoulder. A big part of what that would include would be trying to figure out them telling us challenging, to making sure we get the right answers. But tell us what training you need, tell us what assets you need. Tell us who you need to work with. Who do you need to partner, whether it's the Indiana State Police or the FBI or wherever it is. Because if you're getting a roadblock, let me know, I'll push it down for you. But primarily what we're going to do is work with the people who are in the field. Help them help us defeat crime. Help them help us find out what the sources of that crime are so that we can work on those. Thank you.
Mayor Brown, according to a story written by the Wall Street Journal in 2014, Columbus, Indiana was named as one of 10 cities where violent crime is soaring. In your opinion, what are the causes for this increase? What is the city doing to tackle crime? And what would you propose doing differently during this mayoral term?
That actually was inaccurate. So what happened was there was a change in reporting, the way Columbus was reporting violent crime. So for years, Columbus wasn't reporting all of its aggravated assaults. They changed their reporting, and so it looked like our violent crime rate was soaring when in fact it hasn't been at all. In fact, the last few years, until just recently, our violent crime rate has been pretty flat. And then just the last year, we've actually cut it in nearly half. So we have a very low violent crime rate here in Columbus. So from that perspective, we're a relatively extremely safe community. Our property crime rate is unacceptably high. So our property crime rate has been close to twice the national average. But I would continue doing exactly what we've been doing the last 3 years to fight both violent crime and property crime, and that is, number one, cracking down on the dealers of dangerous drugs into our community. That is number one, because not only does drug abuse destroy the lives of the abuser and his or her family members, is the number one driver of our violent crime. It's the number one driver of our property crime, as addicts are out looking to steal things, to convert to cash, to feed their habits. So we have recently...
30 seconds.
Recently, we've created a joint narcotics task force with the Sheriff's Department and almost doubled our undercover narcotics officers in our community. We have increased our community policing patrols over 500% in the last 3 years. We've got a dedicated community policing unit now. We've got more police officers on the street at any time in our history, and we are really equipped our police department to the fullest, and they're doing an outstanding job. So we'll keep doing what we're doing.
Mayor Brown, recent reports have surfaced suggesting counties to our immediate south and our east are experiencing an HIV epidemic. As mayor, what will you do to educate our residents on the reality of HIV?
Wow, okay, that was not one I was planning on. And I have to say that public health is actually under the county commissioner. So this is, I understand it's a problem, but we're here to help in any way we can. I think the City of Columbus has been a great partner when the community decides we've got an issue we need to tackle. Again, a lot of that's being driven by drug abuse, and we are, through our law enforcement efforts, really cracking down on that. And the other thing I can say is that not too long ago, I co-convened with the President of the United Way a public-private coalition for substance abuse and mental illness so that we can try and bring more resources into the community for prevention and rehab services. There's a shortage of that in our community, as there is in most communities.
Okay. Could you repeat the question?
Yes. Recent reports have surfaced suggesting counties to our immediate south and east are experiencing an HIV epidemic. As mayor, what will you do to educate the citizens of Columbus on the reality of HIV?
Well, I think the first thing we do would be to go talk to those folks and find out what the issues are that they're having. Make sure that we fully understand the source of the HIV outbreak and begin to get prepared for it here. And the way we would do that would be, again, to partner with others. It might be the people in the county, it might be the folks at the hospital, it might be the statewide public health folks. But the idea would be, to go talk to other people, learn what their problems are, and then figure out what we can do to sort of prevent them from coming here. In terms of communicating, again, the mayor has what a former president called a bully pulpit. The mayor's got an opportunity to attract attention to a particular object, whether it's an object or an idea. The mayor gets an opportunity to talk about that, and so I would do that to make sure that people are aware of the risk that is working our way, at least it seems like, and that they need to understand what the prevention opportunities are. And if I didn't think that the partners we have, be they in the county or in the health system, were doing that adequately, I'd just step in and do it myself, or we'd find a way, to get that message across. Thank you.
The next set of questions will be in the category of general and local issues.
Mr. Lienhoop, what is your view of and vision for the Crump Theater? Do you feel that there's a need for a professional or semi-professional theater music performing space downtown?
The Crump is a really tough sell. The data that we've seen indicates that to produce or to build something meaningful might take as much as $10 million. And I don't see how the city's going to be able to come up with even a significant portion of that money. We've got other infrastructure needs, or we've got infrastructure needs that would just seem to push it out. What I would wait for, or what I would want to see, maybe wait for is not the right phrase, but what I would want to see would be some kind of community organization that would champion that activity. And I compare it a little bit to the Commons. We went through a project a few years ago where the old Commons was torn down, a new one was built. The idea for that came from outside city government. There was a champion outside city government. There were people who raised money outside city government and then came to us and said, we need for you to get us over the top, get us the last dollar. That happened again with respect to Mill Race Center. I don't see that with the Crump. I don't see any organization that's willing to step up, to be the champion, to lead the fundraising. And without those, I don't see that project going forward. It's a nice building. I mean, in terms of the facade, the design. The inside, not very nice. I don't know if you've been in there lately, but it will take a lot of work and a lot of money. So until some other group comes forward, I'm afraid we're going to have to wait. Thank you.
Mayor Brown, what is your view of and vision for the Crump Theater? And do you feel there is a need for a professional or semi-professional theater, music, performing space downtown?
Well, the Crump has great historic value and nostalgic value in our community. So it would be wonderful if we could restore it to its former grandeur. So that's my starting point. 2, yes, I believe our community does need a fully functioning performing arts facility. And the question is, can we afford it? And do the folks I serve agree? So we embarked on, Crump had gotten to a state where it really is beyond useful at this point. It's unsafe. And so it's kind of a go, no go decision time on the Crump. And I think that what we did at the city was fully analyze what the possibilities were for the Crump and how much it would cost. And we've presented that publicly multiple times now for lots of discussion. And given the state of where the Crump is and what it would take and the level of investment, I haven't heard from the community. They have an appetite to spend that kind of public money on it, unfortunately. And there really hasn't been significant private money stepping up, nor any meaningful leadership from the arts community to champion this. So it's really fallen on the backs of government and the public dime, and I have not heard, for the most part, the vast majority an appetite on the part of the people I serve to invest that kind of money in the Crump.
Mayor Brown, Columbus has become a noteworthy community, at least in good part to the foresight of the late J. Irwin Miller. Columbus has become special due to this foresight. Is Columbus currently on the right track in this regard, and what steps should Columbus take to move forward and why?
Yeah. I had the great fortune of knowing Mr. Miller. My mother worked for Irwin Management and the Miller family for many years. He had incredible vision. Our community has become the very special and remarkable place that it is today through the efforts of countless people, but really through the driving vision of Mr. Miller. So one thing that I've done since I've come into office is I led the development of Advanced Columbus, which is a community-wide vision and strategic plan. And we went back and we were looking for a vision for the community and went back to the vision of Columbus that Mr. Miller described over 50 years ago to be the very best community of its size in the country. And he described the attributes of that. Now, of course, in the last 50 years, a lot's changed. We have bigger challenges, different challenges. We have better opportunities. And so through that process, with his vision in mind, we set about as a community coming up with our highest priorities and goals. And we have public-private coalitions working on those. So he is, and his vision are always at the forefront of what we do. The community has been very committed to pursuing that vision and plan. And I think our biggest challenge now today, which is very different, is, the philanthropy is not what it was when Mr. Miller was alive. A lot of our private philanthropy sources have dried up, and so we got to be extra cautious and judicious with how we spend our limited private and public money.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, sir. Mr. Lienhoop, Columbus has become a noteworthy community, at least in good part to the foresight of the late J. Irwin Miller. Columbus has become special due to this foresight. Is Columbus currently on the right track in this regard, and what steps should Columbus take to move forward and why?
When I was in Japan and China, one of the things I mentioned to those folks over there was that 50 years ago in Columbus, we adopted a big, hairy, audacious goal. And that's an acronym, or that's a phrase that comes into the acronym BHAG. But a big, hairy, audacious goal is something that is just so far out there you wonder whether you can achieve it. And the notion was that we wanted to be the best community of our size in the country. And I told those folks that for the most part we achieved that. You know, you can measure a bunch of different ways, but Columbus has achieved its BHAG. It's achieved its big, hairy, audacious goal. But Mr. Miller told us a few things other than just comments about inclusivity and taking care of all the people that live here. He mentioned to us that process is as important as the product, that in a democracy, process is as important as the product. And one of the things that I've sort of seen us stumble with the last couple of years is how we work together, how we interact with one another. There's been a little bit too much my way or the highway. There's been not enough listening, not enough understanding and ability to take into account the views of others. I think one of the things we need to remember too is that economic development continues to be key. You know, it's one thing to try to be nice. It's a whole lot easier if you can afford it. I think I do have some concerns with respect to where we go with leadership, and it's not just the dollars or the fundraising, but the brains. You know, we have to have people who are willing to step up, be engaged, get involved, and help us define what the community is going to be, the next 50 years. But again, I would say, process is as important as the product, and we need to work on that. Thank you.
Mr. Lienhoop, what are 3 most important differences between your campaign that voters should remember?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
What are the 3 most important differences between your campaign and Mayor Brown's campaign that voters should remember?
Well, we've got a lot of yard signs. But we don't want to waste time with that now, come on. But 3 things that come to mind. I mean, what we've talked about as I've gone out, I've talked about jobs and economic development and the fact that that's something the mayor needs to lead. So that's one thing I want you to remember. I've talked from time to time about controlling spending, and it's not just trying to make sure we squeeze every dime out, although that's important, but it's also how we plan. Because right now I don't think we're doing a very good job of how we plan for next year, the year after that, and then the year after that, especially with respect to our capital needs. So we talk about planning. The third thing we talk about is how we get along, and the fact that the tone starts at the top. And we can talk about turnover at City Hall, and we can talk about some of the other manifestations of that, but I think that those are 3 things that you can look at with respect to our campaign and see a difference with respect to what we've seen the last few years. One other place that I'd go, and it's something that we don't talk about a whole lot, or at least we haven't talked about a lot tonight, and that is with respect to those folks in our community who are a little less fortunate. That after the economic recession ended and we've worked our way out of that, one of the things we've seen is a great amount of success for a great amount of us. But that success hasn't been shared by everybody. You can talk about the folks at, say, BCSC. They'll tell you that kids in the school system, 50% are on free or reduced lunch, 60% in the first grade. That's a staggering statistic. And what it tells me is that we've got an issue there that we need to deal with. We need to figure out a way to get after that. So again, we talk about jobs and economic development. The mayor needs to lead that. We talk about spending and how we control that and plan for it. We talk about how we get along, that the tone starts at the top. So those are the 3 differences or 3 issues that I would suggest. Thank you.
What are the 3 most important differences between your campaign and Mr. Lienhoop's campaign that voters should remember?
My commitment and demonstration 1 to good government. So we've been very fiscally responsible at the City of Columbus the last 3 years. I've been incredibly inclusive. So talk about the lower income. I've been out in these neighborhoods. These folks know me. I've been everywhere. I've been extremely engaged. We've been very inclusive. Calling the shots are not just a select few people. We're not doing stuff behind closed doors. We're not using secret corporations and spending your money secretly with no track record of who got the money and where it was spent. And so that's number 1 difference. 2, I am running on a record of success and accomplishments and results, not rhetoric. We've made great progress. So that's what I'm here doing. If you hear me talk about what we've done and what we're going to do. And that's a very big difference with specifics. I have a plan for the future. We're laying the foundation for great things in the next 4 years. There's a plan, there's tangible initiatives. So again, demonstration of good government. I've kept my promises. We've both been in office for a while, 6 years, 3 years. I've got a track record that I'm very proud of, and we have a beautiful plan for the future that leaves no one behind.
The remaining questions will come from all the previously stated categories.
Mayor Brown, what are your plans for providing additional opportunities for local entrepreneurs?
Provide opportunities for entrepreneurs. I mean, the best thing we can do, again, is at the City of Columbus, is make sure that businesses here of any size have the resources they need to grow and prosper. And again, so it comes back to workforce development, maintaining our infrastructure, making sure we have developable land, making sure that the city can expand outside of its current boundaries to accommodate, again, commercial development, residential development. We need more people, we need more employees, we need more skilled employees, and those are the things we've been doing. We've mentioned some of those initiatives before, accelerating the workforce development efforts with funding training programs that can be used. These are the things we do and support our higher educational institutions every bit we can.
One more time.
Mr. Lienhoop, what are your plans for providing additional opportunities for local entrepreneurs?
The main thing that we would want to do would be to provide assistance to entrepreneurs. We've heard the word ombudsman mentioned from time to time, but I don't know that that really works, but we would have somebody at City Hall who would be a contact person for anyone who wants to start a business, anyone who wants to grow a business. And that person would be knowledgeable with respect to tax abatements, zoning issues that they might get into, and that person would have a list of contacts. You know, I've been in the business community here for about 30 years, and one of the things that I've seen work well in the past is where local CPAs and attorneys have offered to give a free hour of advice to those who might want to start a business, or, as I said, grow their business. I think we would expand that network to also include bankers, because you can't have a business without financing. I think there are also a couple other assets in our community at the Chamber of Commerce and at the Economic Development Board. And the idea, again, would be to have that contact person at City Hall know the names and phone numbers of those people so that we can get the entrepreneur pointed in the right direction with respect to advice, financing, and how to work their way through the business community here in Columbus. Thank you.
Mr. Lienhoop, what is the larger problem facing Columbus? Insufficient population or lack of jobs? And why do you believe that this is the case?
Well, I'd actually tell you that the biggest problem facing Columbus is insufficient land for development. But of those two, I still continue to think that jobs are the driver. People will follow jobs. That's why they're coming here today, is because we have those jobs. I think it's a mistake to take our foot off the gas with respect to employer recruitment. You don't have to think back too far to Arvin, Irwin Financial, what used to be Saps or Dolly Madison, to know that what we have here today might not be here tomorrow. If you go back 100 years, Orinoco Factory, furniture factory, who's ever heard of that? They were the largest employer, or one of them, in Columbus. So I would contend that jobs is really what drives that, and the people will follow. People are not going to move here unless there's a job here. I mean, the notion that we're going to get a bunch of people here and then go find jobs seems backwards to me. So I would go with jobs first.
What is the larger problem facing Columbus? Insufficient population or lack of jobs? And why do you believe that this is the case?
Again, the biggest bottleneck to our economic prosperity in the future and growth is a lack of workers to meet the demands of our employers. We are at all-time record highs for the number of jobs in the community, all-time record highs for the number of people employed in our community, and we are a net importer of 11,000 people, workers, into our community to fill the jobs of our employers. So that is number one. So workforce development efforts, make sure that the population we have here is skilled, but also we've got to accommodate our growth. And for the first time in the city's history, the planning department just completed a strategic growth study where they analyze where are the most efficient areas to grow for residential, commercial, and industrial development outside our corporate boundaries so that we can do it efficiently and guide development. And we prevent costly sprawl because it's very expensive in terms of laying out the infrastructure and serving outside the limits with our public safety services. And then I'd like to spend just a couple seconds addressing Mr. Lamp's comment on the last question. He said we need an ombudsman at City Hall to work with businesses. And actually last year, I tried to create that position at City Hall. City Council voted it down, including Mr. Lienhoop. So that is something that I would like to do in the future if I had a council that would support it.
Mayor Brown, what is the ideal population size for Columbus, and how do we get to this number? Does Columbus need to grow, or is Columbus well positioned at its current size?
Again, it's really the same response I have to the previous question. To continue to grow and experience economic growth, we've got to continue to grow our population, again, to meet the demands of our employers. So that growth study is really important, and now we can start helping guide development and make infrastructure investments to accommodate future growth. The other thing we're doing too is we are looking at redeveloping areas, infill areas. We've been focused on working with developers and pushing them toward that direction, and then making the investments in the public-private partnerships to redevelop an existing business core, an important corridor like State Street, and then the Golden Foundry site is another example.
Could you restate the question?
Mr. Lienhoop, what is the ideal population size for Columbus, and how do we get to this number? Does Columbus need to grow, or is Columbus well positioned at its existing size?
I think Columbus needs to continue to grow. I don't see there being really much choice. I don't believe that we can tell you that the Columbus needs to be right-sized at 60,000 or at 40,000 or at any other number. What I do think we can tell you is that Columbus needs to grow, and it needs to do so at a moderate pace. And I don't know what number to attach to that, but I will tell you that we've got certain assets in our community that will have to respond and can only grow so fast. The school system, we can't grow faster than what they can accommodate. The hospital or the healthcare community that we've got, they have to come along with us. So we've got to grow them as we grow everything else. I would think if you want to put a number, it's in the low single digits, maybe moderate single digits, but something like that. And how we do that is to continue to make ourselves attractive. We talk about being an importer of jobs. Well, people will move here if they find this place attractive. And that's part of the reason behind the downtown development that we've had. It's part of the reason for the Welcoming Communities Initiative and the Engage Columbus activity. It's just trying to find a way to make people realize that this is a great place to live. And once they realize that and they realize there are jobs here, I think the people will follow. As to whether there's appropriate size, we'll leave that to others. I do think, though, that we need to continue to grow because you can't cut your way or you can't diminish your way to success. It just doesn't work that way. Thank you.
Mr. Lienhoop, what opportunities do you foresee to create, foster, and or capitalize on to make Columbus an even greater place to live than it already is?
Ooh.
I think what we'd want to do would be to recognize that when people look at a community, what you have to ask yourself or you have to ask them, what is it that they're looking for? And then we need to find a way, to provide that or show them that we have it. When I look at that and when I look at what I want to see in Columbus, I think of a safe community. So we have to be able to demonstrate that it's that it is safe. And so when you look at those statistics, or we talk about those statistics, we have to realize that the people who might come here are looking at those as well. So part of what we've got to do is manage to those numbers. The second thing we want to do is show that there are educational opportunities here that are excellent. You know, I talked earlier about the opportunity for lifelong learning. You know, we've got a great asset here. We've got you know, a great school system, and we need to make sure that they continue to be among the very best that they can, and among the very best in the state. The third thing that I would want to talk about, you know, is economic opportunity. I moved back to Columbus 30 years ago because I couldn't move back to Columbus 40 years ago. You know, there just wasn't the economic opportunity when I got out of college to come back here right away. I sort of had to wait. I wanted to go see the rest of the world a little bit, but when I decided to come back here, it actually took me 3 years, you know, to find the opportunity that I'm looking for. So in terms of what we could do to make Columbus a better place, I think we enhance safety. I think we enhance our educational opportunities, and I think we enhance the economic opportunities that we can offer you know, to residents and folks who want to come in here. Thanks.
Okay. Mayor Brown, what opportunities do you foresee to create, foster, and or capitalize on to make Columbus an even greater place to live than it already is?
Yeah, I would just go back to our plan, Advance Columbus. We have 4 major priorities: advancing our infrastructure, advancing the safety and health of the community, advancing economic prosperity and well-paying jobs, and advancing opportunities for all and leaving no one behind. So in the infrastructure, we're already doing it. We are getting on top of our deferred maintenance on our streets, fixing roads. We're making major investments in road reconstruction to accommodate our growth. We are looking, exploring with NDOT the possibility of a railroad overpass at the crossing of 46. We are, in addition to doing the infrastructure on the safety and health of the community, we continue with our law enforcement efforts, our emergency medical services, technical rescue efforts. We're doing a great job there, but again, number one going forward is to try and cut the demand for dangerous drugs in our community, and I've explained why that's important before. Continue to build out our amenities. So number one would be to keep investing in our people trails, and we've got important connections to make now that are going to require people bridges at State Street and around the pump house property. I'm very committed to doing that. We need to continue redeveloping areas. Downtown, we've just sold the pump house. We're looking at future riverfront development. And then on the, I talked about the workforce development efforts being priority 1 for our businesses, and then continuing to improve and strengthen our neighborhoods.
Okay, and this concludes the general Q&A portion of the debate, so you survived. So we'll now move to the final phase of the debate. For the next 5 minutes, the candidates will be asked a series of questions, and they can only respond with yes or no answers. The candidate can also choose not to respond. As a reminder, the majority of these questions were submitted by the residents of Columbus. So the first question will go to Mr. Lienhoop. The City Code currently provides civil rights protections against discrimination in housing, education, employment, and public accommodations based on race, religion, color, sex, pregnancy, disability, national origin, and ancestry. Should the code be amended to include sexual orientation and gender identity?
Yes.
Okay, Mayor Brown?
Far too complex an issue for yes or no.
Okay. Number 2, Mayor Brown, you'll go first with this one. Do you support school-age skill trade development?
Yes.
Mr. Lienhoop?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Lienhoop, you'll go first with this one. Indiana's new Religious Freedom Restoration Act caused quite the uproar. This brought to light the efforts to light the efforts several other business-friendly communities such as Indianapolis, Evansville, and Fort Wayne have done in adding both sexual orientation and gender identity to their non-discrimination ordinances. Indianapolis Mayor Ballard just issued an executive order prohibiting Indianapolis from doing business with companies who refuse to also recognize such protections. If elected mayor, would you put on the council's agenda a similar ordinance and issue a similar executive order?
I don't think I want to answer yes or no to that.
Okay.
I made a statement earlier. I'd like to stand with that.
Okay. Mayor Brown?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're going to have to repeat that question for me.
Okay. Indiana's new Religious Freedom Restoration Act caused quite the uproar. This brought to light the efforts of several other business-friendly communities such as Indianapolis, Evansville, and Fort Wayne have done in adding both sexual orientation and gender identity to their non-discrimination ordinances. Indianapolis Mayor Ballard just issued an executive order prohibiting Indianapolis from doing business with companies who refuse to also recognize such protections. If re-elected mayor, would you put on the council's agenda a similar ordinance and issue a similar executive order?
On all issues surrounding this, I would put on the agenda what the Human Rights Commission recommended.
Okay. This next question is for Mayor Brown first. Will you, as mayor, encourage greater collaboration across a broad range of issues affecting the needy in our community?
Yes.
Mr. Lienhoop?
I'm sorry, say again?
Will you, as mayor, encourage greater collaboration across a broad range of issues affecting the needy in our community?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Lienhoop? Do you support the legalization of marijuana?
No, I do not.
Mayor Brown?
No.
Mayor Brown, would a population of 100,000 be good for Columbus, Indiana?
I'll pass on that.
Mr. Lienhoop?
I'll say no, meaning not anytime soon.
Okay. Mr. Lienhoop, Columbus has enjoyed a unique quality of life due in part to the many boards and commissions that give people a chance to discuss ideas and determine priorities and find the resources to make improvements that benefit the community. The mayor is a member of many of those boards. If elected, will you actively participate in the board of which you are a member?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Mayor Brown, do you plan to keep property taxes from increasing?
Yes.
Mr. Lienhoop?
Yes.
Mr. Lienhoop, should the local government own and rent out real estate?
No.
Mayor Brown? Should the local government own and rent out real estate?
No.
Mayor Brown? This is from a resident who lives off of County Road 200 South. At the present time, we only have State Road 11 or Terrace Lake to get to Jonathan Moore Pike. Since there's been more of a housing growth in this area, I feel there should be another north-south road and people trail put in between County Road 200 and State Road 46 to ease the traffic, especially during certain parts of the day, as well as emergencies and flooding. Can something be done for our safety as well as convenience to shopping?
Sure.
Mr. Lienhoop?
I'm sure as well.
Okay. Mr. Lienhoop, is there a plan to extend Columbus Transit to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday and on Sundays?
Is there a current plan?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of.
Mayor Brown?
No.
And it looks like we have, our time has extinguished, so there will be no more of these questions. Thank you. I just want to say that there was supposed to be a fancy buzzer sound, and it didn't work, so I apologize. All right. I want to thank both of you so much for your time. The debate for this evening is complete, and now each candidate will have the opportunity to make closing statements. Mr. Lienhoop, you will go first.
Okay. In my opening remarks, I referred to 3 numbers. We're going to have a little test here. Now, who can remember all three? 17 million, 0, 100%. Okay, you passed. What I want to talk to you next is a little bit of discussion about government. I view government as a bit of a partnership. It's a partnership between those who elect and those who serve. It's a partnership between the governed and the governor, if you want to use that phrase. And one of the things that I think we need to do from time to time is make a determination as to how our partnership's working. Somebody told me once that the best way to evaluate a partnership is to look at it through the eyes of your partner. And I think that's great advice, because it applies not only for business, the people you work with, but it applies with your spouse, your kids, your neighbors, your friends, the people you go to church with. Look at it through their eyes, okay? What I want you to do is think about that for a second and just keep that notion in mind, that that's how we're going to evaluate, a partnership. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about is yard signs. When I came in here this evening, saw this red banner, I thought that we're in good shape. The point that I would want you to understand is I don't like yard signs any more than any of the rest of you do. But it's a necessary evil in politics. And one of the things that you gain from it is really two things. One is an understanding of support and an opportunity to talk to people. We have put out about 1,000. We're just shy of that. We'll probably, the rate we're going, we'll get them out this weekend. And I hate to tell you, but we're going to order more. Now, when we talk to people, and they mostly come to us, when we talk to them, we ask them, well, what is it that's driving you? What is it that's wrong with this partnership that's over here on the wall? And what they tell us is, there's 3 or 4 things that they mention, but 3 things that come up most often. One is they don't understand the tone at the top. They don't understand, how we get along with one another. They see the issue with respect to economic development and the fact that the mayor needs to lead that. Now, I try to talk a little bit about spending because I'm an accountant and I get into that stuff, but that doesn't really attract too much attention. The third thing that does come up from time to time, and I hit on that a little bit earlier, is what you might consider to be a social issue, and that's homelessness, poverty, those kids in BCSC that are at free or reduced lunch. So they talk to us about economic development, and they talk to us about the tone at the top, and they talk to us about what we do for those folks, who maybe aren't quite as fortunate. So what I want you to understand that as your mayor, what I will do is tell the Columbus story to anybody and everybody as often as I can. This is my hometown. It's a wonderful story. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want to go everywhere and share the word. I've never been a preacher, but I'm prepared to do that because I believe in Columbus and I believe that what we have here is something special. I think that we can do a better job of setting the tone at the top. This is a small town, and you need to learn how to live in a small town. Before I got involved in city government, I got involved in the city. And you begin to learn that people watch all the time. People make judgments about you. Talk to Mike Pence. Do you think people outside Indiana are making a judgment with respect to Indiana? You know they are. And that's one of the things that I want to be able to address. I've been in one place down on Washington Street for almost 30 years. I've kept most of the same staff for at least 25. It took a little while to get some of the folks hired. We had to grow. But I think I can help with that. And I think with respect to the third issue, I think with respect to how we deal with those folks who've got a little issue with respect to economic activity, poverty level, if you will, I think we can partner with the other organizations here in town to make a difference in their lives. So again, I go back to the 3 things that are on my list: economic development, controlling spending, and how we get along. And to that I add, how we take care of those who are a little bit less fortunate than ourselves. I'm Jim Lienhoop, and I'd appreciate your vote May 5th. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question? No, I'm kidding. We live in a very, very special place, and we're all very passionate about it. That's something we can all agree to. We're very proud to call Columbus our home, but there's always room for improvement. And when I was elected 4 years ago, people we're looking for changes in city government. There was a sense that City Hall had become an insiders club and that decisions that impact our future were made by a select few behind closed doors. And my campaign promise to the people of Columbus was to change that, to make sure that we serve the interests of all residents and all businesses, and to work with everyone equally. And I've kept that promise. There's never been a group of well-connected people standing behind me calling the shots. The voice of the people in Columbus from every walk of life, blue collar to white collar, and from every neighborhood, from the east side to the west side, carries the same weight with me. And I have changed the way city government does business, and it's to better serve you. I have never let politics get in the way the last 3 years. Of course, there's always the champions of the status quo. There's been some pushback. They say, but we've always done things this way. I was not elected to be the keeper of the status quo. And we are, we're protecting your tax dollars. I said earlier, I understand who I work for. I work for the taxpayers who write the checks to the City of Columbus and not the special interests. We return the power of city government to the people. We're governing for the common good. We're getting the most out of your dollar. We're ensuring accountability. We're operating with integrity. We're delivering unprecedented results and making outstanding progress on a plan that includes all of Columbus. And I'm running for re-election because I believe, and many others, that we're on the right path. We're making our community safer. We're making our neighborhoods, all neighborhoods, safer and stronger and prouder. We're redeveloping forgotten and blighted areas. We've promoted record job growth. We're finally fixing our most critical infrastructure, our roads and storm sewer systems. We're making long overdue repairs and improvements to our parks. And we're doing it with no trash fees, no new debt, no new taxes. So we've made great progress. We're laying the foundation for even better things in the future. And I personally, like many others, don't want to see our city government go back to where we were. The last 3 years serving as your mayor has been the privilege of my lifetime, and I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity. And I assure you, I've done the very best job I possibly could every single day. And now I'm running for re-election. I'm running on a track record and a comprehensive plan for our future. And if I'm re-elected, I promise to continue to work with everyone to make our city even safer, stronger, and more prosperous. And I'll do my part with unmatched enthusiasm, fueled by your confidence and support once again. I want to thank you all for being here and listening, and those of you in the outer room. And I appreciate the opportunity IUPUC's provided, and students, you did an outstanding job. Thank you. And I'll just close by very humbly asking for your vote either in early voting on May 5th. Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you both again so much for your time. The debate has ended. On behalf of IUPUC, I want to thank our candidates for their time and willingness to participate. Without you, we could not have done this. I also want to thank the audience for being here. This is a record turnout for IUPUC. Thank you to our colleagues here at IUPUC, the Office of Communications and Marketing, Indiana University Information Technology Services, as well as the staff of the Columbus Learning Center for making today run smoothly. Please be reminded that the candidates will be moving immediately to the media room and will be available for questions after that time. Have a safe trip home, and good night.